to Blackbird Writers Presents Author Interviews. I am Tracy S. Phillips, and I am here today with Tori Eldridge. Tori is the best-selling author of the Lily Wong thriller series and the Ranger Makalani Pahukula mystery series. She also has a standalone and maybe another coming out eventually. Her impressive bio includes acting in film and TV, singing, dancing on Broadway, and a Toshindo Ninja martial arts fifth degree black belt. Oh my gosh. Today we are discussing her latest book, Hawai'i Rage, the second book in the Ranger Makalani Pahukula mysteries. Welcome, Tori.
Well, thank you for having me. And I've got to hand it to you. You did a great job on pronunciation. My bio throws a lot of show hosts between Ranger Makalani Pahukula and Toshindo. It's like people are like, really? Really? You couldn't have named your protagonist, I don't know, Leilani Jones or something.
Well, it helps that I listened to the audiobook.
Ah,
So now I know the pronunciation. As if I had been reading it, I'm pretty sure I would have done it totally wrong.
see, akamai. You're smart.
So I'm so pleased to have you with me today. Hawai'i Rage was a fascinating look at diverse people and cultures native to Hawaii. You grew up in Hawaii, right?
I did in Honolulu.
Ah, that's so cool. And so tell our listeners a little about your unique heritage.
Oh, okay, doke. Let's see. My mom was from Wailuku, Maui. She was Hawaiian Chinese. Her dad came from Canton, and her mom's ancestry, we can trace it back to North Kohala, on the Big Island, down back to 1783. Crazy, yeah? So
Wow.
trace it through Hawaii Island to Molokai to Maui to Oahu, where I was born. But my mom met my dad. He was Norwegian from North Dakota in Tokyo, and that's where my sisters were born. So all of these heritage, including Japanese, are very, they're very important in my life. They kind
Hmm.
of informed a lot of who I am. And so, not surprisingly, they show up in my work.
Yeah, that's a lot of cultural heritage.
It is, it is. And of course, if you're living in Hawaii, there's everything else too, because you're
Right.
just there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's so cool. And what a amazing archive for you to draw on to write these books.
Yeah, it really has. When I wrote the Lily Wong series, my parents were getting up in age and I was, kind of caring for them. And I wanted to pay homage to, her Chinese and his Norwegian heritage. And also, I was coming off martial arts. And so that was, right there in my mind. And so that was the time in my life, right? Dance Among the Flames was strange in that it published fourth, but it was really the first book I wrote. So that Brazilian thing really had more to do with my fascination than my heritage. But when it came time to write Kauai Storm, which was the first Ranger Makalani Pahukula series, I had just become a grandmother and a tutu, which means grandma, and my granddaughter was named Moana. And so I really want to reconnect and reconnect more deeply with my Hawaiian heritage. And so I also, if I was going to write a book, a novel set in Hawaii, it had to be more than just, an exciting thriller or mystery that
Yeah.
captured the culture and captured the vibe, as so many authors and author friends have done beautifully, I might add. But as a native Hawaiian, as a Kanaka Maoli, it had to be more than that. I needed to touch base with my people. It needed to resonate. And I wanted to make sure I was writing about issues that Native Hawaiians in Hawaii are struggling with today. And so that's kind of a thrust of the series. And then, of course, Ranger Makalani is a national park ranger, and I made her that so that her work showed that same kinship with the land with which she was raised.
And yeah, and all of that comes across so nicely in this book. And like I mentioned before, I listened to the audiobook too. So there was a lot of different cultural factors going on in this book. Ranger Makalani is an amazing, strong female, one of my new favorite fierce female characters.
Yay!
And so tell us a little bit about your inspiration for her, because she comes, I didn't read book one, I'll just admit that right now. But in this book, she starts out and she's in Oregon as a ranger.
Well, to begin with, it's kind of cool that you didn't read book one because what that tells people is you don't have to.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in Hawaiian cowboys, you can just drop straight into Hawai'i Rage, which was my goal. I wanted readers to be able to drop in wherever they wanted. Um, so yeah. Okay, so Makalani, all of my characters come out of research and my stories come out of research. So when I knew I wanted to address in Kauai Storm, the first book, I wanted to address the issue of Hawaiian homelands and homesteading. I had Makalani grow up on a homestead in Anahola, Kauai. And so that was her upbringing. And so from there, I'm like, okay, so what kind of person is she? What do I want her to be? To begin with, I don't want her to be this kind of stereotypical, beautiful, lithe Polynesian girl. No, she's 6 feet tall, man. She can pick you up and carry you down a mountain, as she sometimes must do. Her idea of fun is building a house for Habitat for Humanity, or helping to build poi pounding boards and things. She likes to work. She likes that strength. She has enormous energy, in many ways too much energy to be contained on the island. But at the same time, she's a character who has a connection with the Aina, as all Native Hawaiians do. And so I wanted that to be in the forefront. So I had her go away for college to Colorado. That's where she went through ranger training. That's when she went through law enforcement training. And that took her to an enormous national park in Oregon. Now, with Hawai'i Rage, she begins this book on Hawaii Island, having left her job at Crater Lakes National Park, and now she's taken a seasonal position at a National Historic Site, in honor of this Pu'ukohola Heiau, this kind of temple and sacred place that was sacred to King Kamehameha I. Basically, she's a tour guide, and she has to go through this in-depth cultural immersion as if she were a mainland hire. And it's making her nuts, quite frankly.
Yeah.
She's bored. She needs to get her hands in the earth. She needs to feel like she's doing something of value, which is why you see her in this very first chapter. She is racing off on a UTV to save this kid who fell into a lava tube. Is she
Right.
supposed to do that? No.
No.
Should she have asked permission? Yes. Would it have been granted? Absolutely not.
Right.
This is Makalani. So that's my protagonist.
Yeah. Yeah, she's amazing. And I loved her. Oh my gosh. So I want to talk about the intro to this book a little bit. And I think I said that wrong. It doesn't open in Oregon. It opens at the state park in Hawaii.
Uh-huh.
So but you blend these two life and death scenes.
Oh.
Yeah. So you're going back and forth between these two different points of view. And, the reader's going, oh my gosh, wait, oh my gosh, wait.
Good.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I wanted you to do. Yeah, every novel I've written opens with an exciting action scene of one kind or another. And they usually take place in one chapter. The exception to that would be The Ninja Daughter. That took place in 2 chapters. But in Hawai'i Rage, the big action that came to me at the very beginning, with Hawai'i Rage, I wanted to show the world Hawaii's rich Paniolo culture, our Hawaiian cowboys, because we're cool. They're so cool. And I don't think people even know that Hawaiian cowboys exist. And when I decided this is what I want to write, and I started researching, and like I said, my characters and my plots and my ideas come out of my research. And then I got this idea, and it came from research because this did happen in the past. I had this vision of this rancher getting killed in the most gruesome of ways by a bull. And I thought, that's the opening to my book. And I went, wait a minute. He's not my protagonist. People
Right.
are going to open this book and they're not going to know who's going to be driving this book. And so I'm like, I have to start with Makalani. And yet this is what I want to start with. And then I got the idea, aha, I know what. I will put her in action doing what Makalani does best, not listening to what she's supposed to be doing and imposing her help on people, whether they want it or not, and having her in this life and death rescue. And I still get to follow Larry Hiapo and on this exciting, tense thing. And so I flip back and forth between 5 chapters. And that's the opening to Hawai'i Rage.
Yeah. It was fantastic because then, you're totally hooked. You've got the two different things going on, and then you're like, how is it going to connect?
And you know you're in for a Western. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the other thing. It's like, who knew that Tori Eldridge would be writing a Western?
a Western.
Certainly not me. I didn't know
Yeah.
until all of a sudden I was like, I want to write about Paniolo. I think secretly I've always wanted to be a Paniolo. And so it was really great. And it gave me an excuse to ride on some ranches on the Big Island and that kind of a thing. But by doing that, I was able to set up who my protagonist is. So you know what kind of person she is, you know where we are, you know what we're in for, you know who's going to carry you through this story. And yet on the other side, through Larry Hiapo's eyes, you see Hawaii in its beauty and the language and the manner in which Paniolo care for the land and their animals and their cattle, which is quite different than the round 'em up stuff you might see on television. It's
Right.
much more caring, and calm, right? And land centric. And so I was able to establish that and then creep into what's going to be the driving incident for the entire story.
Right. So yeah, you were talking about that it's a Western. We end up on this cattle ranch with Makalani, and then she finds out about this death, and of course she's got to investigate.
Well, it's her cousin's wife's fault.
Right.
Her cousin and his wife, right? So, Larry Hiapo is her cousin-in-law's father, was her cousin-in-law's father. And so she is just dying to get her hands dirty. And the cousin comes up with a great idea. Why don't you go help out on their ranch? They need it. And, Rosie's brothers are vying for control of this ranch, and the 97-year-old grandfather is like still involved, and there's all this stuff. And then Rosie makes her plea to Makalani, and she says, you know what? While you're there trying to heal my family that desperately needs some healing, I also need you to check into my dad's death because this accident doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah.
And my 8-year-old son has been on that ranch, and there have been a lot of accidents that feel very targeted against him. And I'm really concerned they might be related. And so, whoa, Makalani's like, well, I
Yeah.
thought I was just going to go help out with some cows and horses. Now you want me to check into your father's death and protect your son? What?
Yeah.
So that's the impetus of this mystery.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so there must have been a lot to learn, I mean, about the process of cattle ranching.
Oh my gosh, so much,
Yeah.
so much. And it was all so fun. I was really fortunate. I made some really great contacts. I contacted the Paniolo Preservation Society. I spoke on the phone with Senator Tim Richards, whose family owns Kahua Ranch in Waimea. I visited some ranchers in Mauna Kea, and of course, all the other typical researching that we do online. But my greatest boon was this classmate of mine from Punahou School. I haven't seen her since I graduated in 1979. And it turns out that her calabash uncle, calabash is like what we say when you're not actually related, but you are in your heart, right? Her
Uh-huh.
calabash uncle was a major Paniolo, even though he's not Hawaiian. He is a local, and he's one of the Paniolo Preservation Society Hall of Fame,
Wow.
cowboys, and the owner of the new Town and Country Ranch stables. And so I was able to talk story with him over the phone. And then I went to Oahu and I sat down in his stable for hours listening to his stories and with my friend Kim. And then they were so great. They were willing to read through those opening chapters that I told you about to make sure that I had written them as plausibly and authentically as I could. And then my friend Kim, who is an equestrian in her own right, and her mother too was one of the best rodeo competitors of her day, read through the entire manuscript and helped me make sure that the language, the way the cowboys were speaking about the horses and the animals rang
Their
true.
tack and
Yeah.
everything. There's so much
Oh my gosh, there
yeah.
were so many things. And and because I like to set my mystery into action, I had to know how to do stuff. How do you repair a fence? How do you gather cattle for branding day? What do you do about that? How do you get them in the, oh my gosh, I had to learn all these things. It was crazy, but so cool. So cool.
Did you get to ride around on a ranch or
I
do
did.
anything actual?
I did. I went for a ride on Kahua Ranch on the Big Island, which was really cool because I did it the day before I spoke with Senator Richards. I didn't know I was going to get to speak with him. And so it was really great. So in my mind, my fictional Hiapo Ranch, which has been around since the very first Mexican vaquero was brought over by King Kamehameha the Third back in 1780, I think, eight. No, no, that's when the Longhorns came over. Anyway, back in the late part of that century, the Hiapo's ancestry goes back to that first time. And
Wow.
that's how long they've had this ranch. And in my mind, it sits, if there was room, right between Kahua Ranch and Punaholo Ranch in Waimea. Of course, there's not room, so it can't possibly be there. But that's in my mind, that's what it is. And the ranch, it follows an ahupua'a, which is a land division that goes from the top of the mountain all the way down to the ocean.
Very cool. Very, very cool. You've also written into these books a variety of diverse characters because immigration was, a big thing in Hawaii as well as everywhere, right? And so there was Chinese, Japanese, Mexican. Um, I think,
Filipino,
yeah,
Portuguese,
I was,
it goes Korean, it goes on and
yeah,
on and
yeah,
on
yeah,
and
yeah.
on.
So I
Yeah.
think that really like that was an education for me
Oh,
because
yeah.
yeah.
Even the Hiapo family
Mhm.
itself, because back to the first Hiapo, that came from one of the Mexican vaqueros who came in, then he went back home. But he had an affair with a native Hawaiian woman. So that was like half and half. And then, that guy married a woman who was, mixed blood, and so it goes as it goes down the generations
Yeah.
until you get, Rosie's son, who is, not only part Mexican and part Hawaiian, he's also part Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. And so he has all these things, going on. And
Yeah.
that's important because this is how our families are. And in the first book, Kauai Storm, the the blood quantum of Hawaiian and how that changes through marriage is a huge part of the family drama in that book.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, so it would be really remiss of me, considering that I did my own audiobook last
Oh,
year, to not discuss your audiobook because
oh,
with all of these different cultures going on, you did your own soundtrack and you recorded all of the different accents for each character, whether it was Chinese or Korean or the Filipino gangsters or you know it was amazing. And so, and it was very clear, but there's also in that book, there's a lot of like Hawaiian lingo and language that you translate as you writing it, obviously, because we don't all speak Hawaiian. But
Yeah, it was
me
something.
anyway.
Yeah, it was quite an ordeal.
Yeah.
And by the way, hats off to you in producing your own audiobook. I mean, wow, that is a huge undertaking. All I did was narrate it, but I had to audition, which I'm
Which is
still laughing about. I swear to God, I'm still laughing about this. I got an invitation from Brilliance Publishing to submit samples narration samples to them for Kauai Storm. Yeah, and I did my homework because I've got a lot of really amazing narrator friends, including the famous, um, some who are just tremendously famous, like Ray Porter. And I sent them, my recording and got some feedback and changed it up and sent it out to them again, got more feedback and kind of honed it up and then submitted it and fingers crossed it went well. The only thing they didn't do was send me, the author, the sample recording of me, the narrator, to see if I would approve myself. So they didn't do
which is
that.
what I
Yeah, yeah. That would have been hilarious, but no, they didn't do that. As far as I know, I'm the only one they auditioned. They might have auditioned other people, but I don't think so. Um, but I had an acting and also a voiceover background. And
Mhm.
so I put that in my questionnaire, my author questionnaire. And I think that's why they gave me a chance. So they gave me a director who was very helpful, Jennifer Aquino, and I had a fabulous engineer, and I was in a beautiful studio in Portland. I had all the care around me in the world. And I spent 10 days rehearsing everything for Kauai Storm at home. I did a similar thing with Hawai'i Rage because I don't narrate books all the time. I can't just slip into it. I don't have a usual norm, right? I had to make sure I was absolutely prepared. And I would run by pivotal scenes, chapters, and voices. I'd email them to my director for feedback so that by the time I stepped into the studio for Kauai Storm, the first book, I was ready to go and it was really smooth. So I did the same with Hawai'i Rage because an entire year had passed since I had narrated a book. I kind of felt like I had forgotten how to do it. I'm like, uh-oh, so I went through the whole process and I had just lost my voice. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
no.
Fortunately, I got it back like the day before. Yeah, I started rehearsing too much, too strong, went in too hot. Um, so that was my experience, and because I write this particular series in multiple close third person points of view, I hear those chapters narrated in those characters' voices. So
Hmm.
when I narrate those chapters in that character's narration voice. And then I break off into the character voices. And of course, there are over 58 characters in this book. So yeah, it was something. But I was really thankful that they did. We have a lot of really talented Native Hawaiian narrators out there that weren't maybe out there in the past or that I was not aware of. And so I wasn't sure how many narrators out there could do justice to the Olelo Hawaii, the native Hawaiian language, and
Right.
also make the pidgin English that these characters spoke individual to the characters instead of just one blanket pidgin English version, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was glad that they let me do that.
Yeah, I feel like you know your book and you know your characters best. I'm surprised that you had to audition.
Isn't that hilarious? Well, you know what?
Yes.
Most audiobook publishers, publishing companies do not want their authors to narrate because authors habitually do not narrate well. I even heard a story that my engineer told me. I won't mention the name, but hugely famous person had their memoir made into a major motion picture. But when it came time to narrate that memoir before the motion picture, they would not allow her to narrate her own memoir, which I find astounding. And
Yeah.
then it became a huge, motion picture. And then she had clout. So after that, she's been able to narrate all her books.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, well,
Mhm.
it is, and I mean, there must be a reason for, and I've actually heard, I've been to author events, where authors, read from their own book, read pages, and sometimes you're like,
Yeah.
hmm,
Well,
okay,
our skill is generally, normally, in writing, holed
writing,
up
yes,
alone, hearing these things in our head, putting them down on
yeah,
paper. Not many of us came from a theater, television, film background.
background, right?
I mean, I was
Yeah,
also a singer. I did session singing, voiceovers in studios and stuff. I mean, that's not usual. It's not typical
right,
for an author to
yeah,
have that kind of background and comfort.
yeah. I didn't have that kind of background, but I had a music background and I knew the recording software.
Nice.
And I also read the entire Harry Potter series to my kids and my
I
husband
did too. Of course,
with all
my
the
kids.
voices.
Yes. And my son still remembers that. And now he's doing it with my granddaughter. So you and I are like probably a whole generation apart here, you know. So I'm getting a kick out of, hearing him now read this to my 5-year-old granddaughter, with
That's
that
awesome.
same, great
Love it.
drama, right? It's so fun. So
I
fun.
love it. So, is there anything about the process of making an audiobook that you would recommend to authors who either want to narrate their own or are looking for a way to record so that they don't have to do all of the tech work themselves?
Oh, I don't think I have any advice to offer that because it was entirely up to my publisher. By their grace, I was given a chance. And so
Mm,
because I haven't done any self-published audiobook, I don't have any notable advice beyond hearsay to pass on. But what I will say is if you are given the chance, rehearse rehearse and get feedback
yeah.
because it all of those hours you spend before will help you in the hours that you're in the studio,
Right.
whatever
And
kind of.
studio is paid time too.
Oh my
So if you're
gosh.
in the studio and you're messing up or not
Yeah.
doing it right, then yeah.
Yeah, and not only that, rehearsing also helps to get you in shape, because
Yes.
nobody speaks for 7 or 8 hours nonstop in a day, four to
Right.
five days in a row. We
Right.
don't do that. That's not normal behavior. And
No.
so, like any muscle, like running a marathon, right? You have to slowly build yourself, build up that stamina and that strength.
Agree. 100%. Um, so what is next for Makalani Pahukula?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know because I am writing a standalone domestic suspense thriller. So I have an idea of what Makalani could be doing. I have a story she could be doing, but that's not what I'm doing at the moment. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and find out.
Okay. Well, I will be waiting for sure. And also
Well,
for your
yeah.
next standalone.
Oh,
Um,
thanks. I can't really say too much about it because the publisher has not made an announcement on this. So
okay.
all I can say is I've got a month left and I have to turn the sucker in.
So where could readers find out about that? And where can they find your books?
Oh, well, you can find my books anywhere. And if you want to benefit your local bookstore, please ask them to order it. That's a real great service to me. I have a lot of readers who will get the paperbacks of the book for the glossary. There's an extensive glossary for the Hawaiian language and for Pidgin English at the back of the book, along with characters, along with all sorts of things. And at the front of the book, I don't know if y'all can see this, I have a genealogy. It's even bigger, the one for Kauai Storm, because that's Makalani's family. And so it's readers have been enjoying having that resource in the paperback while also listening to the audiobook. So I'm finding that to be an interesting thing. But the best place to learn everything about me is through my website, torieldridge.com. You'll be able to get to my free Substack blog through there. You'll be able to find all of my social media on there. My favorite social media is probably Instagram, and you can find that through writer.tori, not horseback rider, writer as an author. Just want to mention that. Yes, a scribe, right? Writer.Tori. And then all the other social medias are either Tori Eldridge or Tori Eldridge author. There's no other famous Tori Eldridges that I've found, that are going to squish down, things. So if you Google my name, you are going to get more than you ever wanted to know.
That's awesome, though. You're lucky, actually. You're
Yeah,
lucky.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much. I think I also want to mention that you are a member of the Crime Writers of Color and
Yeah.
also the KALO Hawaiian Civic Club of Oregon and Southwest Washington. Could you
Mahalo for
talk a little
that.
bit about those groups really quickly before we go?
Oh, absolutely. Wow. Crime Writers of Color. Oh, man. It was founded by Walter Mosley and Kelly Garrett and Gigi Pandian, and it has bloomed into this amazing organization. And we're so supportive of one another. And it's been a real blessing to me, and I think to all of us who are involved. And as for KALO, they're really close to where I live, and the Hawaiian Civic Club was started by Prince Kuhio, and all the islands, or most of the islands, have their own civic club, and ours here is kind of, representing the continent, you know over here. And so it's nice to be connected in that way. And the mission is to share the importance of kalo, which is taro, and haloa, which is first Hawaiian. And it goes back to I guess you would say, legend, our origin story, our creation story, where you know the 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 stillborn child of Father Wakea and Papa, who is like, Mother Earth, their stillborn child, they planted him, they buried him in the earth, and from there came Kalo. And their second child was Haloa, which they named Breath. And it was through the Kalo that he was sustained, and through him, the entire Hawaiian people. And so there's this kinship between Kanaka Maoli, Native Hawaiians, and the land, and the kalo plant that goes back to the time of creation. That's what I meant about the kinship and the connection to the land. That's what I wanted Ranger Makalani Pahukula to grow up with on her homestead in Anahola. And that's what she carries through with her into Hawai'i Rage.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tori. This has been a really great conversation, and you'll be able to watch this on Substack and Spotify and YouTube.
What fun! What
Yeah,
fun. Well, mahalo nui loa for having me. I'd appreciate it.
yeah. Thank you.